Welcome to Zero Fucks Given. I'm Krista DeLuca, along with Carson Block and Freddy Brick. Also joining us today, we have a very special guest, Ross Gerber, who is the co-founder, president, and CEO of Gerber Kowalski Wealth and Investment Management. He has become one of the most influential investors on social and traditional media and appears regularly on Bloomberg, Reuters, Fox Business, Yahoo Finance, CNN, and CNBC. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Zer0es.
And Zer0es.
And you also left out that he's heir to the Gerber baby food fortune. I don't know
Yeah,
how you
right.
missed that one.
Yeah, right.
She would have gone for this, Ross.
Listen, if I was heir to the Gerber baby food fortune, I would not be on this show. I would be retired in Zer0es or something.
So, okay, no relationship then yet.
No relationship at all, except that I have two Gerber babies that have grown a little bit now. But my dad's a dentist, so I'm heir to a dental chair and a drill.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. And I think people might feel it's odd, a little bit strange bedfellows,
Why?
given, well, that's what I would say. But I do want to point out, you and I have never actually spoken before, but we have exchanged DMs. And a couple of years ago, I wanted to do this, like during the whole Gamma Squeeze thing and
Right.
GameStop. I wanted to film this little segment, kind of riff on Training Day, where the dudes are sitting around the table with Ethan Hawke, and they're like, hey cop, you ever had your shit pushed in? So I wanted to do that with Ross and a couple of other people like Cathie Wood, and saying like, hey Short, you ever had your shit pushed in? And Ross was down to do it. It's just, I dropped the ball. I was
too busy for me.
You know what?
I figured I should spend more time figuring out how not to lose money and go out of business than I did on the creative endeavors.
I think I know why you lost the weight now. You were fretting at the time, like, oh, how bad will I look compared to those, tatted up dudes with my shirt off. Now you're finally like, Ross, want to do it? I lost a ton of weight. Look at me, I'm really ripped.
That's what it was. It was, you had to look good.
Well, part of it's because I didn't realize the actor who did that with his shirt off and did that like big flex, that guy was actually not young when he did that. He was in his early 50s. And so that was around 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
So here we were 20 years later, and I'm like, oh shit, I don't think this guy, even if he is available to do it, I just don't think it's going to have quite the same effects.
Well, now I'm 52 and I can flex pretty good. Actually, I'm in best shape of
All
my
right,
life
Ross,
at 52.
Let's get your shirt off. I mean, look at you. You've come on here as if we're a real bunch of guys.
I'm on social media, so if I do anything of the sort, I can only imagine how far that'll go on social media in a negative way. So I've tried to avoid, my masculinity too much on, Twitter or something like that.
Well, okay, so it backfires when you do the chamath thing, right? When you're like,
right.
When you're obviously bragging about it. But if it's like, if we're all like, hey, flex, and like, I have no choice but to do it, then I don't think, and plus if you don't show your legs, you don't risk the whole.
Well, I've worked hard. I've been doing a lot of biking, so my legs are less skinny than Shama's for sure. And I would say that it's a great way to look at market tops if you're posting pictures of yourself half dressed. So that's also like a superstitious thing. Like, so if I was like, oh, look, I'm in such great shape. Now, granted, I'm coming off 2 weeks of recovery from COVID that I got partying in Vegas. So this is the best I felt in actually 2 weeks. But before that, I was doing well. But I'm really into fitness, really into health. I live in Southern California. Your shirt's off a good amount of the year. I spend a lot of time at the beach. So maybe if somebody catches me down at the beach,
Huh.
So, but are you married? Because like for me, I got married a long time ago, and it was sort of like, gives a shit anymore.
Oh, I 100% disagree. First of all, I am married, but I'm not dead. You know what I mean? So it's like, my wife doesn't pay attention to my podcasts and Twitter and stuff. So, but it's like marriage. Why would that matter? To be honest, like about being in shape, like, I'm still very active with my wife, she looks great. I don't want her to look better than me. I mean, she looks great. I got to stay in shape,
Fair enough. Well, I guess it's also, I used to live in Southern California. I lived there for 8 years in LA because I went to USC, but then ultimately ended up in Northern California, and so lived in the Bay Area for, about 11 years. And people up there don't,
They're fucking horrible. No offense. I met my wife there. She's lovely, but what a horrific looking group of people.
I think that's part of it. Yeah, in general,
it's different scene up there. It's 100% different. Where I live, I would consider is probably the best looking people maybe in the world, because we're in Santa Monica, California, where, people are extremely healthy. And then you have a huge amount of people in the entertainment business. Every model from everywhere in the world comes to LA. And so you walk around, there's very attractive people, men and women everywhere, Most of the men now, swing lefty. So it's actually even better if you're a heterosexual man. So it's it's a really, really good thing to be a heterosexual alpha male in Southern California,
So that's something that gets to something I'm really curious about, because so I moved out of the country in 2005. We moved back in late 2010. And so during that period of time, the financial crisis happened, but came back and moved to Northern California. And I haven't spent that much time in LA since I moved back. And that's one of the things I was wondering about, Northern California became very culturally uncomfortable there. So we're now in Austin. We moved here about a year and a half ago. And I was wondering, in Southern California, is it similarly oppressive? Is it wrong to look at women, used to look at women in public, she's great looking, but
whistle at women, be like it's the 80s again. No, so I function in many different crowds, so San Francisco is not my place. It's not my thing. It never has been. When I was a kid, I was considering moving, to San Francisco, because actually I was just saying, I went through one of the worst earthquakes in American history. The Northwood earthquake in 94 was when I had graduated college. I came back to LA and basically everything got destroyed. And I lived through this earthquake. So I was like, I'm going to move to San Francisco because I don't know if LA is going to be left, But then I was like, I can't, this is not for me. And that was a long time ago. And I'm a pretty liberal guy, at the time, I was a big deadhead and I was hanging out with the hate. But, so in LA, you have a very, I don't know, I guess the term is woke or super liberal contingent of people that very much have adopted a culture that is very extreme in some ways, of the expectation to make sure everybody makes everybody happy, no matter whatever they believe in or do, and it's gotten kind of out of hand, but then there's also a lot of business people, and there's a lot of, financial companies and regular companies in LA. So there's different groups that you work in. So I can go to a meeting or an event that's in the entertainment industry, and it's you got to kind of walk on eggshells what you say to some degree. And, part of it is annoying and part of it is fine. It's whatever, it's just the way the world is. I don't know, if you get enough weird people in a room, nothing I say will make anybody happy. I tend to say extreme things. So, I got to be real careful in that crowd, which is fine, I guess. And then, I hang out with lots of business people where, it's just like everywhere else. And so I think you choose in LA sort of what scene you're in and how much of that you want to expose yourself to. But the imposition of it on people isn't really the way it is here. The way it is here is people do what they want to do. And, if you don't mess with me, I don't mess with you. It's less of this I'm going to force this cultural appropriation onto you of my belief system, and I think part of that is the media also exacerbates these conflicts, but, I lived in Venice, California. And one of the things when I lived in Venice for a while, I realized no matter how weird you think you are, you're actually not that weird. If you go to Venice, there's weirder people than you, no matter how weird you are, there's a guy who dresses up like a plant and wears stilts and walks around all day long. I swear to God, I've been to parties. This guy walks in.
Long only guy.
He's called the tree guy. You know, he's like the tree guy, and he literally dresses like a tree and walks around on stilts and goes to parties and whatever.
He was actually a pioneer of the ESG movement.
Yeah, totally.
So let's be careful what we say about him.
No, I'm friends with the tree guy. He's wonderful, and
It's a wonderful.
he's not that woke actually. He just don't insult trees. You know, I don't know. You know, our culture. So I think there's a wonderful thing about inclusion. I wasn't a bully as a kid. I was somebody who got kind of picked on as a kid. So, and part of that was because I was smarter than most of the other kids. And so the athletic ones would be like, oh, Ross is in classes better than me and getting all the girls, so we better pick on him, you know? And so I do have sympathy for people, and I don't think it's cool to pick on people for being different, you know, like, I think we should accept people for who they are, even if they're super weird. But then there's this extremeness where now I have to, like, you know, cater to every whim of every person. And that's where I think it gets out of hand.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that Southern California is not as off the crazy.
Well, you can go to Orange County. All you have to do is go to Orange County. Orange County is conservative. You want Trumpers. I mean, most of the Trumpers are gone now because they realized that was a bad vote. But if you go down to Orange County, it's just like, you know, living in Texas or whatever. They're, you know, super conservative, and none of that goes on down in Laguna. So I spent a lot of time in Laguna. It used to be a very gay area. You know, it was like a very liberal artist community, and over the years it's changed, and now it's pretty conservative, you know, and a lot of those people have now moved to Palm Springs area, which is, you know, become a really fun and diverse area. But like, you go down to Orange County and, you know, or Central Coast, you know, people are conservative. Where do you think Kevin McCarthy's from? Central Coast, you know?
Well, I'll take the other side on Palm Springs. I used to go down there in the 90s when I was in college to party. It was fun. It was fun. Like, I used to say routinely, it's the only place I ever went where the ratio of females to males in a given club or bar was usually in favor of females, like more females than males. And then,
that was the old days.
That was the old days. And it seemed like it changed all of a sudden, because I think it was in probably 2001 or 2002.
With Sonny Bono.
Went down there this one weekend and just heard techno reverberating from the across the hills constantly. And there was not a like straight couple in sight. And so the place that we used to go out and go and party, it was great. It's called Cecil's on Sunrise, had been renamed Cece's Pipe Factory.
Right.
And
hey, but you got a lot more attention, so it wasn't all bad.
I'm real popular in Palm Springs. Yeah, I know. It's like everybody hits on you in Palm Springs, guys, girls, whatever. You know?
You know what? As we have Ross on, I think, because we had Andrew Left on, and, you know, I think given, Ross, how handsome you are, it's only fair that we check. That is your chin, right? That is not an implant? Because it's very strong.
I don't believe in plastic surgery, and my wife actually has a natural beauty company. So she would probably be horrified if I did that. But no, I don't believe in plastic surgery. I believe in aging. I think it's fine to get old. You know, I have hair, so I'm not going to complain.
Okay, but since you brought it up, I don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but your hair is very brown.
Yeah.
Not dyed?
No.
Okay.
It's not. I just got a cut. So there's gray. Like, it's way more gray when it's long, but when I cut it short, it's not as gray.
Oh, okay.
I try to cut as much of it off as possible.
Long only, much less stressful than what we do. Like, it's... So, you know, this brings me to a question I wanted to ask.
Oh, boy.
So we were sitting here in 2020, just wondering why the fuck we do what we do for a bunch of reasons.
Wait. Why 2020? Why not 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21?
Because bull markets are most
2020.
of the time.
2020 was like the peak of like, we're such idiots. This is such a terrible time to be alive as a short seller.
Right.
On the other side of that, were you just waking up every morning being like, this is fucking awesome? Like, is everyone just like high-fiving the shit out of each other in the office? Being
Not
like,
really.
hey, have you heard of this stock? Let's buy it. It's going up. Like, what was it like to be long during that time? Did you feel like a genius?
Well, I've been investing long enough to know the minute I start feeling smart is a real bad thing, you know. So I tend to try very hard when I'm winning not to celebrate and be excited. And just the same when I'm losing, like last year, which was horrible for me, I try not to be too depressed either. It's like emotions don't really serve me as an investor. So actually, I'm pretty impassionate about those things. And at that time, if you recall, my basic analysis was that the economy was going to go off a cliff and we were doomed. So we had moved to a pretty conservative actual allocation at the time. And the reason we made so much money was we were overweight and heavily invested in Tesla. And that's when Tesla took off. And so when Tesla took off and went crazy, I was pretty happy about that because I made $250 million, so it was like, that part I was happy about also because I went through a period of time where people like yourselves, the short sellers, were attacking me mercilessly in 2018 and 19. And really, it was a really hard time for me. Like, we were losing money on Tesla and Elon was funding secured and all this nonsense, and like the stock was going down and I very much believed in the company. And I went up there myself and met with management and looked at everything. And I go, things are going well. Like I don't get it. And then it was like Steve Eastman and the Big Short people were against me. And then like Andrew, everybody was like against me. And so it was a really hard time, 2018, 19. So when 2020 rolled around and Tesla took off, I felt a lot more satisfaction being right than per se, like how much money I made or didn't make or how well we did that year, which was phenomenal. We made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in 2020, but it was a very hard time. If you recall, the pandemic was a nightmare to deal with, not just socially. I hated staying home. Our business had to adapt greatly to the situations we're in. And for a good part of the year, we dealt with thousands of clients who were extremely nervous because remember, the market was down 35% in March. And so like when everything recovered and it was like, what the hell? I was pretty like, holy crap, this is working out. Like, thank God, but it was only because the Fed and the drastic actions of the government to really support asset prices, which it turned out was way too drastic in hindsight, which led to the repricing that we had last year. And just the same, it was an extremely difficult year for me last year too. And it sucks. It sucks. So investing basically is a painful process for me. Most of the time when it's up, I try not to be too excited because then I'm nervous. And then when it's down, I have to deal with like thousands of clients complaining and issues and whatever. So I think for me, it was funny. I was just working with this client and I was going over their long-term performance. They've been with the client for me for a long time. For me, over time, we have a very good result for clients. And I want people to reach their financial goals. And the fact that we were able to get through the pandemic in a way that was profitable for our clients was super great, because it was a really hard time for a lot of people, a lot of loss and such. And then followed up with 21, which was like even more ridiculous. But see, what happens is everybody gets so excited in my office and it makes me super skeptical. And then I wish I sold more in 21, which I didn't do, and then things are always worse than I think they are when things go down, so I didn't think the Fed would raise to 4.5. Boy, if I would have known that, I would have sold twice as much. You know what I mean? But I think investing is generally painful, and I don't do too much celebrating or crying.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, I actually don't know that much about your business model. I mean, you're an RIA, so
Right.
I guess you're doing individual accounts, and then you
Right.
also have the ETF. Is
Right.
that right? And when did you launch the ETF, and what's that been like in terms of? I mean, I would imagine that the complexity that adds to your business is pretty substantial.
Yes, they lied to me. They failed to tell me that part. As I finish this, I have to do more work, SEC, blah, blah, blah. But no, we manage right now almost 12,000 families, households. We have about 20,000 accounts that we manage individually. From very small clients in what we call our Get Invested program, which can be people with $10,000 or less, to high net worth clients that might have, 20 million or above. The majority of our clients are normal people, with an asset range of, let's say, 250,000 to 2 million. And that niche is super awesome because most of our competitors sort of ignore people who aren't very wealthy. So it leaves this big thing. And then secondly, we're very young focused. So we work with older clients too, but the majority of our clients are 50 or below, my age or lower, Gen X, millennials, Gen Y. That's really our focus. And so that really has allowed us to grow. So our inflows are really what I look at more and what I care about more than per se. I mean, returns are important too, but our inflows are quite substantial. We take in, almost 300 million a year in new assets each year. And even last year, in our worst performing year, we did not have any slowdown in inflows, which was incredible considering. So, at the top of the market, I was convinced to start an ETF, but part of that was being able to scale money management among all this clients. It was a much more efficient tool to scale our money management, actively managing money. Obviously, it's very hard for 20,000 accounts. And then secondly, the tax advantages. That was really it. We made so much money on Tesla. And then when we took profits and realized those gains, we paid millions and millions and millions in taxes. Our clients did. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And then somebody explained to me about active ETFs and the fact that I could avoid capital gains taxes through this structure. And I was like, wow, this is a great idea. They failed to tell me, how hard it was to deal with an ETF, compliance wise, whatever, fine. So I started it in July of 21 and had a great first 6 months and then just got pounded, because it's only stocks. So our traditional portfolios have a balance between stocks and bonds, and our weightings are depending on our client's risk tolerance. So last year wasn't as bad for us for our traditional client than per se the ETF, which really represents our 40. Right now it's 40 stocks. It's our alpha, so we'll take the S&P index and then put my ETF over it and then put some sort of bond allocation and then weight that for your risk tolerance. And that's a simple way the way we manage money, a simple way to look at it.
So how many people do you have working for you now?
It's almost 50 now. So we have 26 advisors that directly work with clients. And then I have our accounting business is growing like crazy. So I got sick and tired of accountants. I really hate accountants. I don't hate accountants.
I hate lawyers.
We're going to edit out. We're going to edit out the bit where you say I don't hate accountants. Actually, we're going to leave you there.
I say that, and then I'll get 4 calls from clients who are accountants and be like, Ross said he hates accountants.
Except for
and
you.
then my advisors complain. They go, oh, Ross said something that pissed off somebody. I go, we got 12,000 people. It's impossible for me not to piss somebody off. If they watch this stuff. But
they don't.
We started an accounting firm with one guy, and he sucked, so I fired him. And then I found that this miracle, God gave me a miracle and found me this young guy who was super motivated. And I said, we want to build an accounting firm. We're sick and tired of this. We want to use technology. We want to apply the same things we did with financial services, but in accounting. And he got it. And now we've got 5 accountants. It's growing like crazy. And
so what is this?
So we got 5 accountants and I've got 26 advisors.
Is this just serving your asset management business, or what kind of accounting firm is it?
Yeah, it's like we serve our clients, individual clients, filing tax returns. And
okay. So
yeah,
it's
we
not...
file tax returns, and help people. So if you have an account with us, we already know everything. And we have we built this technology. We didn't build it. We use this technology where you can just upload your forms, and we're trying to make accounting the easiest, least painful experience of your life, because I hated dealing with my accountant. It sucked. And it was I got to just redo this whole business model. So most of the accounting firms, they charge such high fees, and the same thing with high net worth. They only focus on people with tons of money, and then you get turbo tax if you don't have any money. And so we were what about all these people in the middle? What are they doing? And they're being overcharged or underserviced. And so we're well, we'll use technology, and we'll be able to leverage, because actually taxes isn't hard. Once we do 1 year, it doesn't change that much for clients. So we just update it, file your return, boom. So it's been great. So we have 50 employees or so, and it's about 32 professional, accounting and investment professionals.
So, but it's interesting to me. I mean, you have thousands of individual accounts, and you said think 26 advisors. I mean, how do you do that?
Well, it's not easy. So the first thing is most younger people don't want to meet in person anymore. And Zoom was one of the most incredible efficiencies that we implemented in our business ever. And secondly, many young people are happy to communicate by email. So it's not like we have like calls all the time. Like I used to get calls. Like when you have calls all the time, it's time consuming. But when you have emails, you can kind of like deal with stuff when you're ready to deal with it. And you can deal with stuff in a lot more scale. And so our typical advisor is managing hundreds of relationships. But many of those relationships aren't that hard to manage because their situations aren't that complex. It could be a young person in their 30s who's not married, who has $250,000 invested with us. And the needs of those clients is really relevant to each person. But because we handle stuff and we actively manage stuff, many of our clients, they don't need to meet and be serviced as much as maybe, let's say, older clients are most used to. I have clients who still call me up on the phone and expect me to just pick up the phone like I'm a broker. You know what I mean? And I'm like, sorry, those days are over. Email me and I'll get back to you and we'll make some time to talk. But it's most advisors in our industry manage about 100 relationships. So we thought that, we could do 5 times more with technology. So we also do what's called bulk trading or enhanced trading, where we manage a good 25% of our book through like a centralized management through technology. So when we make trades for like this overall model, we have lots of them now. It affects maybe like thousands of accounts now. So it's almost like running a battleship where we have to make sure we do everything right, but we can do things in scale because of technology. And that was always our goal when I started the firm, was like, how do we leverage technology to build a massive firm? But like, how scalable can we make this? So now we've reached kind of the limits. So we're hiring. We need more advisors.
Okay. Interesting. And I'd imagine that the 80-20 rule kind of holds true for your business, where 80% of your profits come from 20% of your clients, or?
No, because the bigger clients get, you charge them less, and they take a lot more time and energy. So you have to look at your value per, how much effort per dollar earned, so that's why working with clients with like $1 million to $2 million is great, because, we can make a decent amount of income working for those clients, but their demands are much less than somebody who's got $10 million with you or 15 million. Some of these people want to talk to you all the time. I'm like, listen, I can't manage that relationship. It's just too hard. So if you look at a traditional broker at like Merrill or any of the wirehouses, they spend an enormous amount of time wining and dining their clients and potential clients. They're traveling, they're taking them here and taking them there. And it's super competitive because everybody's going for the same guy with 50 mil, And so if you got most of the industry chasing the whales, it's a very time consuming process. Plus you're always defending your business from every pitch, from every hedge fund and everybody, And so like, we serve the public, and that was really my goal. As I said, I'm a deadhead, so my fundamental, I'm not going to say what I feel about ultra rich people, but I much prefer.
Say it.
It's
None
fine.
of the ultra rich are watching. I promise you.
Well, I'm friends with some of the richest people in the world, a couple of them, and they're actually pretty cool. But I live in the Palisades with some very wealthy neighbors, and they're all assholes. So I'll just be straightforward. I don't really want to work with assholes. A lot of people become very successful, and they're tough people, and that's the way they are. But, quite frankly, it doesn't make me feel good making money for rich people. It doesn't feel the same as when you help somebody like really build
What
a
about
financial
losing
plan,
money for rich people? Could you just had them in last year and be like, job's done, now I'm going back to the grassroots?
I don't like losing money. Once again, it's more important for me to be right. I want to be a good investor. It's an intellectual game for me. Like every night, every day, I spend my time like trying to figure out the best place to invest and how I can make the most amount of money with the least amount of risk. So it's not I'm not a person who just takes risk, like, oh, I'm just going to add at risk. And if I'm lucky, I'll be good. Like I look at it more like what's the max amount of profit I can make with the least amount of risk. And even if that risk adjusted profit might be less than with a higher level of risk, I'm okay with that because the down, and that's why I kind of failed last year because we lost more than we should have, but I'm also not going to sell my Tesla and it's down 75%. What do you want me to do?
So I'm not familiar with the holdings in your ETF, but I obviously know you from Tesla.
Right.
But
that's
do you have, in general, is that what you like to invest in on the long side? Those kinds of stocks?
No, I own casinos. My number 2
Wood?
position is MGM hotels.
Okay.
I love the casino business. I love online gambling. So we have several major themes we invest in. Then it's followed by like Netflix, Microsoft. Disney is now a top holding again. I'm happy about now that Iger's back. So we invest a lot in entertainment, streaming. Netflix is a top holding. And then it can be other businesses too. We just took a position in Steel Dynamics. It's a steel company, Novo Nordisk, everybody's taking this weight loss drug. It's like crazy in LA. And it's like,
so we had this huge conversation just before this started with this one. So you were talking about this drug.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy good or crazy bad?
Crazy how many people are taking it.
Yeah.
But it does. It does something to your face, right? Supposedly.
It does a lot to you. Like I'm a much bigger believer that you should just eat less and work out. But we have an obesity problem in this country that's insane. Like I was just in Vegas checking out MGM and getting COVID, and it's like when you see the general public compared to California, it's like shocking. We have an obesity epidemic in this country. And so, this drug comes out.
I'm disappointed, Ross. I'm disappointed that you were on a floor where you would have to rub shoulders with the lay person.
With the general public.
Well, this is how I make money. I gotta know what people are doing.
So wait, are you by the craps table being like, bro, I got a way better risk-weighted thing for you as he's about to like slide a ton of chips over and you're like, have you...
Shut up.
I want them to gamble. No. I learned from this guy named Steve Wynn when I was a kid, and it was, you want to be the house, so I want people to gamble.
Absolutely.
I'm perfectly happy with them gambling. I'm not going to tell them to stop gambling. I hope you bet on the Super Bowl. I hope you go to the BetMGM, lounge outside of the stadium and have a great time. I'm all for people. I believe people should be able to do whatever they want to do with their money. And when they want financial planning, they can come to me and we'll show them to invest in the casino. It's a good thing. But, the weight loss thing, was really built around diabetes, and they found that this hormone would suppress your hunger basically, but it has many side effects, and the way it affects each person is a little bit different, and how much dosing you take and so on. But what we've seen is that people are losing 25% of their weight. And if you're 350 pounds, you're a lot better off being 250 pounds, and so what they're saying, it's the lesser of the two evils per se. We have a culture now that, it's fine to be super big and people almost celebrate it. And now, they're looking for, I think, an easier way out, which is using this drug. And it's about $1,500 a month. It's pretty expensive and it does work. But you have to take it forever.
What if you want to lose 6 pounds by the weekend?
By the weekend?
Yeah.
Fast. Just fast.
So, maybe if you crushed it up and snorted it, you'd be even faster.
Yeah. The best way to lose weight is eat less. So I get the hormonal thing where if your hormones, change and you're not hungry.
Yeah.
I'm a cannabis user, so I have the opposite problem. If I smoke pot, it's like, I can eat a house down. You know what I mean?
I think most people can do that.
So I actually have the opposite problem that, I use cannabis here and there, and it helps me sleep and relax and enjoy playing my guitar or whatever. But then it's like I go into the kitchen and I see the kids' stuff and I start eating through their candy or whatever.
Yeah.
but you know, eating less is definitely the right strategy.
The right way to go.
Yeah.
No, it's just,
All right. So I know we're also running up against Disney earnings, and you're going
Right.
to jump for that. And there were some things we wanted to get to. You have questions you're
I
dying
just
to
wanted
ask.
to know if you owned or will you own a Cybertruck? Are you into? Yes.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've owned every Tesla. You know, it's
Right.
like.
And you know why you're gonna own a Cybertruck? Because it's fucking cool.
It is so ugly.
It's so
I don't
cool.
care. It is so ugly.
I mean,
Carson, if you show up in this Cybertruck, it doesn't matter how ugly it is. Everybody's going to walk up to your car. Everybody.
Do I want that?
I mean, it's kind of fun when you're in LA and these dudes roll around in their Bugattis, and then you roll up in your Cybertruck. Everybody's going to like, oh, Bugatti, what? You know, Ferrari, blah. You know, no. For me, I am a big investor in Tesla, so I want to make sure the truck is great. So I buy the products, I use products, you know, so anything I invest in, granted, I haven't used the weight loss drug, but everything I invest in, I do typically, you know the products very well, you know, products or services of those companies, you know.
Okay, but so you'll buy it for research purposes. But
Yeah.
I mean, you know, honest to
know
God
what-
truth, does it look good or does it look ugly, the Cybertruck?
Well, I've seen it in real life.
Okay.
And it's one of the most incredible vehicles I've ever seen. I think when you think about the future, that we often are wedded with our ideas of the past, like what beauty is. For example, in the Renaissance era, being large was considered beautiful. And then there was this era now that everybody got so skinny, like the Victoria's Secret era, where women were supposed to be like so skinny and tall, it was absurd. And that was like the image
It was
of people.
great. That was a good fucking era.
And now we look at those women and they go, oh, why would we think that's attractive? They're so skinny. You know, so like,
Send them over here.
Yeah.
yeah.
Send us your
Well,
ugly
I've met a
Victoria's
few-
Secret
right,
outcast
right.
models.
Totally. No, listen, a lot of models are making a good living now that aren't skinny, let me tell
No,
you.
yeah.
And that's actually the big thing right now is a lot of the models aren't skinny anymore. And I think that's a good thing too.
But isn't that part of like the forcing this view, forcing like other people's values on everybody
minute.
else?
No,
So do
it's
you
called
think
selling
if-
products to your audience, to be honest.
If they wanted to stay models, do you think they've got all those skinny Victoria's Secrets models and they're like force feeding them like foie gras? And they're like, you need to
won't eat
fatten
it.
up.
They won't
You
eat
want
it.
to stay on the runway.
They won't eat it. You know, they're still making a living. Don't worry. But I think the Cybertruck represents a vision of the future, and it's a vision that you might not be comfortable yet because we're so used to F-150s and that sort of vision of what a truck is. And I think if you think about cell phones and like what they looked like 20 years ago, we think they were like junky pieces of crap compared to today. And now you look at these sleek, you know, iPhones, and that's what we consider the future. And now, you know, we might say that about VR glasses and like, I'll never wear these clunky things. They're huge and horrible, which is true. But in 5 years, that's not going to be the case. And we'll probably be wearing regular glasses that, you know, do a lot of things. So I think oftentimes these visions of the future are shocking to people, and then over time it becomes normal. Now, the Cybertruck is meant to do that. So keep in mind, it's meant to make an impact that way, not to be a truck to sell like the Ford Lightning, which will do very well as a regular truck. I like the Rivian truck. You know, the Rivian's a beautiful truck. I see them now around, and I think they're great trucks. So if you want to different versions of the past or the future, you've got Cybertruck on one end, you got the Lightning on the other hand, and you got the Rivian in the middle. So it doesn't appeal to everybody, and neither does most things.
This guy's a good salesman.
But I mean, was it designed that way to be different, or was it designed because Elon Musk or somebody thought this looks great? I mean, it looks to me like a DeLorean banged a doorstop.
It does kind of look like that DeLorean. I think the more I understand, I try to understand Elon, and I say try because it's real hard to see his vision. His vision is so massive and so forward thinking that oftentimes I realize that even in my wildest like forethought of what he could be thinking is usually not far enough, you know? And I think he's the innovator of our time. And so oftentimes, you know, it's hard to imagine, but I think what he's thinking about is like what the future will bring. And maybe this is a vehicle that you'll use on another planet, you know? I don't know. But that's the way he's thinking. He's thinking like nobody else. And so he'll build a truck. It's going to be a super hard truck to build too, because it's got like ridiculous steel and stamping process, but he's going to build this truck and it's going to be insane. And the tech in the truck is going to be insane too. And the charging and the speed is going to be insane too. So I think it'll be quite an impressive vehicle, even though it might take a lot of people a long time to get used to.
It also might never actually exist.
No, it's going to exist.
It's going to exist?
Yeah, for sure.
When is it, and not a messing with you question, just when is it supposed to go on sale?
It's supposed to like start some sort of deliveries at the end of this year.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm hopefully going out to Austin in 2-3 weeks to see where they're at for this event.
What color? So I was because I think it's a really fucking cool. We had a long debate about this. I think it's a really cool looking car.
The debate's not going to end.
And I'm thinking I would get it in like matte black with some camo, because then you like really are making a statement. Like,
I don't think you can paint it though. I don't think it's paintable.
I mean, that seems like a little bit of an oversight.
So is
like
it
you
only?
can
No,
only
it's
get
like
it in
a steel.
silver?
It's like a steel, and it's like you can like shoot machine guns at this thing. You know, it's like
Well, he did throw a rocket in.
Yeah, I
There was
remember
some issues.
when
that was at the glass though. That was at the glass. But I'm just saying, like,
I'll tell you
the
what,
vehicle
Ross.
itself
When you
is
come down to Austin,
crazy.
instead of hanging out at like a shooting range, we'll just have you stand behind the door and we'll test your level of conviction in whether you can shoot things at it. Then
That's
we'll see
Elon's
if you're a
job. I
believer,
think
my
that's
friend.
Elon's job, right? That's the inventor's job. But no, I think that the worst mistake people can make is underestimating Elon Musk.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I said years
Whether you believe
ago,
in it or not, just don't underestimate him. You know,
No, I said years ago that I don't think, and you know, this is when Tesla was like, you know, $60 a share pre-split. Said, yeah, you know, I wouldn't go long Tesla, but it's another thing to short Elon Musk. And
Right.
we ended up owning puts that almost hit in that 18-19 period, crash
Right.
puts, but we were long the Tesla converts, and we used the coupons to fund the purchase.
that's what
of
I
the
was doing
puts.
too. I was long the converts too.
Were you buying puts though?
No.
Oh,
would
okay.
I
No,
do
I
that?
mean,
First of all, I'm not good at shorting. You know, that's one thing I know I'm not good at. You know, like I just don't make money betting against stuff. You know, even stuff that was obvious to me, like Nikola. You know, like I can smell these bad actors pretty easily, but I don't like to bet against these things because even Nikola is still in business, which I don't even know how. So it's like, you know, like I think what you guys do is a very specific skill and talent. And I think it's a really difficult strategy when it's kind of rigged against you. You know, like the markets are rigged against you. Look at Bed Bath & Beyond. I mean, this thing is so bankrupt, it's scary, right? And some hedge fund comes in, it's like, oh, we'll give them $1 billion. And I'm like, I was saying to my wife.
these are Hudson Bay is very, very sharp money. I mean, this is
No, I know.
Yeah.
But
This
Bed
is a
Bath & Beyond is not
sick
coming
structure.
back. It's not coming back. What they're hoping for is it'll be like an AMC deal where they take the equity and then it becomes like a mem stock and then it'll rally and they'll dump it and make money.
Yep.
Okay. I get what they're
No,
trying to do.
They don't even need that to happen. This structure is so awesome.
Well, there's
I
some
know,
downside risk.
I know.
There's some, but-
It's really rigged, but I'm still saying like it's a piece of crap company. I mean, Bed Bath & Beyond is dead. It will never come back. Okay. I mean, it's just like, I'm sorry. They just missed it's gone, you know, like, so I don't know why I'd bet $1 billion on that any way you look at it, you know, like, I think that's a hard way to make money, you know, but I think short sellers generally have a very difficult task because the markets are rigged and especially the banks don't want to see their bonds get wiped out and things like that. So it's like everybody's always rescuing these like horrible companies. And so I think you're best off relying on the ones that are like extremely overvalued and quite liquid where you have this opportunity, you know, like Tesla last year where the founder decides to buy Twitter and then goes on a selling spree in the open market for like a year straight, boy, that was an easy short if I would have thought about it back then,
And
but I actually didn't think he was going to do any of that.
Right. Well, I mean, there was obviously a lot of beta there, but and when we look at what's happened in the market very recently in December and January, I mean, probably a lot of this is due to liquidity with BOJ, PBOC injecting it. But when, to the extent we get past that, I mean, you're obviously a bull on Tesla, but I mean, I don't know. Do you think, I mean, is there a time at which, is there a sign that you would look for that would tell you should be getting out?
Yeah, if something happens to Elon.
Yeah, it's kind of okay.
But I mean, it's what I told Chanos 2 weeks ago. I go, this is the most consequential. It's the most consequential company of our time right now. Like if you're going to bet against stuff, I get that, but why would you bet against this? It's like there are really bad companies you can bet against, and this is a really good company. And when you go to Tesla and you meet the people who actually work there, they're very impressive. Like the work ethic, the expectations, the level of success they're achieving is unbelievable and hugely motivating. And I think that's something a lot of people don't consider when they look at a stock, for example, is not understanding the people behind the stock. And, once again, if you look at, let's say, Google today and all the problems that they're running up against now, you could say, oh, I could short Google, and you look at the company's bloated with people and what have they innovated? And, you can start making arguments. Granted, it's not a very high valuation. I would rather bet against something like that than bet against Tesla. You know what I mean?
All right. Cool. Well, Ross.
Not that I would bet against Google, though.
Right. Yeah. It's one of my son, we've got a little UGMA account for him. So it's one of the two things we've gone long so far.
So what do you got? You got long Google and long what?
Akamai.
Oh, okay. That's not a bad one.
Yeah, I saw the reason I liked Akamai years ago. Somebody who was involved in Muddy Waters really knew some parts of tech. And he was telling me what a joke Rackspace was. This was 2012.
I remember that stock.
Yeah, so he's like, look, Rackspace has no IP. It's just hosting. Right. And so what we had looked at, we went in and saw that what Rackspace had done, basically, they did a global find and replace. They took out servers and replaced it with cloud. And so just super buzzword dependent. And the valuation at that time was 2x that of Akamai.
Right.
And he contrasted it with Akamai, and he said, yeah, look at Tom Layton. Like, this guy's a very serious guy, but he's just not promotional. And I happened to go to a conference, thinking also in 2012, and I saw the then CEO of Rackspace on stage next to Tom Layton. And it was a great contrast in promotional versus non-promotional. So Tom Layton is there in a pinstripe suit. He didn't have a tie, but the guy from Rackspace is there, and he's got the Google Glass on, which was brand new, and everybody, and it was like the lamest shit, right? And he's just so buzzwordy, and that was a great lesson, a great contrast in a guy who could yoke his stock price in the short term, although he did exit, and they got a great buyout from PE. But anyway, yeah, I've always, looking back at the numbers with Akamai, and you just see Tom Layton and Akamai very steadily growing, cash flowing business. Yeah. Pretty conservatively managed. So anyway, that's why those are the two names so far. And we were kind of waiting for things to get even cheaper before adding other positions. But
well, you have one more chance to add Tesla before.
No, never. My son would just think everything I've ever told him about life was a lie if I suggested he buy Tesla. I can't do that.
Like, if you're not first, you're last. And he's like, what do you mean, son? I never said that. He's like, my whole life has been, if you're not first, you're last. And now you tell him. He goes, that's stupid. Why would I say that? Like,
he's going to think there really is a Santa Claus, because I told him recently there isn't.
Carson,
he'll think there is God.
Respect you when you make 10x on his phone.
All right.
You just tell him to talk to Ross Gerber. He knows who I am. You'd say, your kid probably follows me secretly.
That's right. All right. Well, fair enough. Thanks a lot for being on, Ross. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoy it and I appreciate it, and love to do this again.
All right. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ross.